So we have that good and going. If you want, we could start off with kind of like a recap of what we talked about last time. So, gosh, a lot of it was talking about like, um, what you're doing over at your company, and a lot of about how like you're collaborating with different individuals, and so many different interesting things. So, if you want to kind of start off, just maybe recapping quickly what we talked about, and we can start jumping into some other interesting topics. For example, like maybe we're talking about, okay, how could AI impact e-learning? How are we seeing it currently, and how could it in the future? If you want to segue into that.
As you wish. I mean, both are fine. I did, as I didn't as I didn't see the previous, the video that you recorded. Making a recap is maybe a bit more difficult, especially that you talked a lot about a lot of different things.
Yeah, you're right.
But yeah, definitely. So AI for e-learning, correct?
Yeah, let's just jump into that. Let's jump into,
Okay.
how you could use it, currently,
Uh,
what, all that fun stuff.
Actually, it's kind of funny because just an hour ago, I put a poll on LinkedIn on in the e-learning groups, asking them how they perceive it.
Really?
And yeah, let's let me have a second to check the. Well, right now I have 13 votes, so it's not that much. You want me to share it on the screen?
Sure, why not? I mean, this is just a cool conversation, just I think it's just interesting.
Okay, let me see. Here it is. Actually, I actually posted on different groups. So here you have the e-learning industry,
Mm-hmm.
and basically 4 points. How do you use AI for e-learning?
Yeah.
Some people, so you see 38% right now. Perceive it as a total revolutions. 15% perceive it as a useful tool, part of them at least. Then 46 about optimization or automatization. And then up till now, you have 0 saying that it's a content quality destroyer, which is a bit surprising. I expected at least to have 1 vote for that one.
Yeah, I would expect there to be a little, like, even if it was a minority, to still see that some people are thinking that.
Yeah,
But it is still early. You just posted it 2 hours ago, so there's definitely gonna be a lot more people voting on that.
exactly. So based on my perception, also with the conversations that I had and by working with structural designers, people in e-learning and things like that, they working with different tools, and not everybody directly jump into something new. AI, I just also statistics that I read today, only 5% of American companies use AI. And for me, it's already a lot. I expect
Yeah.
that some of them double, and most of them probably use ChatGPT or something like that. So it's still a very niche market. You have also so many different tools coming out that you don't even know what to work with. I mean, I'm one of the guys who started using Runway Gen 3 2 days ago.
I've seen that you posted. It's crazy how impressive Runway
It
Gen 3 is.
it I mean, you have huge jumps in the quality, but at the same time you also have elements where it's lacking. And
Of
I
course.
guess that especially when you work in training, you want to be sure that the content that you provide is delivered in the best way possible, and that the
Mm-hmm.
content is useful and things like that. So of course you have AI training, train people about how to use AI. And the idea last time, and now I remember, it was talking about creating your own game, learn to use AI by creating, for example, your own game.
That was a cool thing.
And then of course you have every other online learning material. And in order to use AI properly, you have to spend a lot of time. You have to learn how to create, if you want, of course, to create
Mm-hmm.
images. If you want to have avatars, you need quality avatars. If you want to use animations and videos, I mean, it takes a lot of time. And I notice also with the game that you create, it takes time. And then you create a whole video, you say, okay, this is great. And suddenly there's a new application coming that is much better. And you already start feeling, okay, is the quality now good enough to use?
Mm-hmm.
Or should I restart the whole thing and use the
Yeah.
new technology? So for example, with Runway now, the Gen 3 has amazing quality, but at the same time, you have less control than other tools or even the previous generation. So
Hmm.
right now, it's better to still continue using the previous one.
Yeah. That's
Um,
interesting. I do have a
yeah.
question. In terms of consistency, is it consistent? Is it a lack of consistency right now? Is that why you would still choose the other previous version?
Depends. For example, the consistency is very good if you have like now one character or one or two big characters. But for example,
Hmm.
if you want to use a crowd or you want to
Mm.
have many different people, then you lack a lot of consistency. The movements and the flow are amazing, but then you will start seeing mistakes also. For example, someone shared a character drinking a glass, which was incredible because you really see the liquid flowing, but then it's
Hmm.
coming back.
Yeah.
So you of course have different tools. You have Runway, you have Kriya, you have Luma. So each one has its own, advantage, and you can combine them. But then again, a lot of people think that you're winning time by using AI, but it's not always the case. So when you create an e-learning, you also have to see, does it have any added value to use AI? And I would say that the way that e-learning, the more traditional e-learning is done today, meaning video quiz, for Udemy style, for example,
Yeah.
you will spend too much time on trying to create the content, and it's not that interesting in that case. If you really want to innovate and do and provide something very different outside the scope of a Udemy, for example, then it definitely is interesting. People that use Storyline, that have very specific trainings that they provide in LMS systems, then yes, because you already invest a lot of time in developing the visuals, the experience, trying to have the training more immersive. In that case, I think that AI can definitely make an interesting an asset, and it would be interesting to check afterwards for the votes to see what kind of instructional designers or L&D manager put the AI as a revolution and which one consider it just a tool like any other. Might be a
Hmm.
difference between how they perceive e-learning as a whole.
Yeah. I think so too. And I think especially with the e-learning style of, like the quiz or no, the video quiz, it's it's just you're not learning near as much, I feel, because like I know we've talked about this before. There's that interaction element. If you can get them more hands-on or more interactive within it, you're maintaining the interactiveness. You're keeping them engaged as compared to like those videos. I know I've said this before, but I doze off. I can only watch a video for so long before I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, I need something to stimulate my brain. So I think these new approaches with implementing, like with, for example, like with your game, having interactiveness while also learning something makes it fun. It makes it so I'm enjoying what I'm doing. It's not just some other training that I have to sit through.
What's also important is to take into consideration that some people don't like the AI style. Actually, I know someone who also she's not in online training, for example, but she following training courses. And she told me, and I found it quite interesting, especially that, games, you have a lot of tattoos. She
Yeah.
said AI is like tattoos. It can be very nice, but you don't necessarily like it. And I found the comparison quite interesting because you have a lot of people complaining, for example, about, yeah, we see immediately that it's AI, it doesn't look real, etc., etc., etc. It's true that not up till now, I mean, right now, because in the near future, you won't be able to differentiate between AI and
Hmm.
reality. But right
Yeah.
now, in most cases, at least you can see that it is AI. What you can do is try to copy reality and provide a online learning experience that looks like reality, but people will perceive the differences, or
Hmm.
go, get out of your comfort zone, get out of the box, and use content that you immediately notice it's not real. Like you
Hmm.
have a lot of online learning that use cartoons, 3D environments. You know from the start that it is not real, and still you will follow the training that it provides you. So
Hmm.
here with AI, it would be actually, I think, the best way of doing is using something that takes you out of reality
Yeah.
rather than try to copy reality.
And I think a big part of that is identifying the audience as to who you're trying to create this content for. Because somebody that's a little bit younger they might do a little bit better with it out of the box, out of their reality. Whereas somebody that's maybe in their 60s, 70s, they're like, I don't, this makes too much, this isn't practical. I want to see a human talking to me, or I want to see, maybe they'd be get used to an avatar, for example, but having more of a human interaction would
Mhm.
benefit some people more than other people. Whereas like that out of the box, out of reality would benefit. Like I would benefit more from like the Star Wars game than I would from somebody talking directly to me. Because I like that interactiveness, and I enjoy like those fantasy types of style of gameplay and just reality in general. So I think it's interesting that where for the different age groups, and there might be a totally different way to tackle how to approach teaching them.
Probably. At the same time, not necessarily. First of all, sharing information, content on YouTube, I also checked what is the age that is actually watching AI videos, like AI movies and things like that.
Mm,
And most of them are above between 35 and 45. So
okay.
you would expect them to be younger, which is not actually the case. Secondly, we have experience with, because we have a VR and escape room in Belgium center. So we work a lot with companies, and most people coming are, yeah, I mean, a big part of the group coming is above the 45. We even have C-level managers in the 60s, and they play VR games the same way as others. And actually, it's funny to see them because they come in a suit, they're very serious, and then you put joystick in their hands, you put the goggles, they're in another world, and they start yelling, shooting, yelling, "I got you, kill them," and whatever. And the kid is back. So we even had the experience with people in the 80s, they're 80 years
Really?
old and playing VR, and I mean, it was wild. So thinking that only the young people will use it, it's not necessarily correct.
Yeah.
You may even have people that are younger that say, I absolutely not don't like that style, or I
Yeah.
don't like escape games or VR or just games as a whole.
I think at that point, yeah, it's identifying, what's going to work for the audience that you're looking
Yeah.
to teach. I think it's funny that you mentioned like the older individuals that really wanting to play the VR, really get into the VR. Because funny enough, my mom, I have just a little Oculus set, and my mom loves it. Anytime she has the opportunity, she's like, please, I want to play it. I want to go jump around, shoot people, do whatever, because it's different. It's really different. So that's something that besides that, I'd experienced that there's some pushback to that because it was so new to them. But at the same time, if they're interested enough to do it, they're gonna. I feel like that's the way to go. Like that's just a really cool way to do
Yeah,
it.
I definitely. I think at the end of the day, what's most important is the content, the quality of the
Yeah,
content. You have visuals, you have the way that you provide the information, but at the end, if we're talking about a game or a training, if the experience is not good, people will just not connect.
yeah,
And it doesn't matter which channel you're using, and whether you're using AI or not. And indeed, of course, if you do a training in a in a bank, you won't start using Star Wars or something like that. You will go for something a bit more less exotic, I would say.
yeah. Mm-hmm. That's yeah,
Although,
true. Exactly. So let's jump into something different. Let's talk about when it comes to like e-learning and things like that. Where do you see the future of it going in terms of like personalizing and how does that look like when you think about like the next 5, 10 years from now?
okay. I definitely see a huge uptick in the field of VR. I mean XR as a whole,
Hmm.
AR and VR. First of all, because the experience you can have one to one, for example, with a trainer that is at the other side of the world, for example,
Yeah.
or a VR coach or VR trainer who is an AI in a specific setting can have a lot of value. For example, imagine you have a training on sales or whatever, okay, or you're working in a hotel. It's much with VR goggles, you can actually be in a totally different environment. You can choose the different environments. You can choose the different, so you really focus on the different contexts. You can provide different non-playing characters
Yeah.
that are linked to a specific storyline. You will be able more and more to communicate with your hands, but also verbally. There are already some simple games developed that way. So the on on in the field of online learning, I believe that VR in the near future will have a huge impact. And actually, that's what Meta and the others try to do, but they pushed it too fast. We're not
Yeah.
there yet. I think that the AI part will bring a lot of added value in this field, and also the goggles have to be much smaller because right now it's bulky. You need batteries, heavy
Yeah.
batteries. It's still expensive. It's complex to use. I was talking about VR. Most people are not accustomed to use VR goggles. So the moment you put it on their head, the IQ just goes down.
Yeah.
Uh, and then you see them doing stuff. You record that. If you record them, you will have a good laugh because
Yep.
um, it really puts them in an uncomfortable situation. So I think that people will also get, with the time, people will get more accustomed in using this kind of technologies. For example, the Meta Ray-Ban that I tested not long ago, I found it fantastic. This is a tool. It's maybe too early, but these are the kind of tools that will really help people improve. For example, in the Ray-Ban, you have your goggles, but you just have audio. You don't have any visual content on
Mm-hmm.
your glasses. But the moment that you, for example, you are in the kitchen and you want to prepare something to eat, the glasses will tell you exactly what to do.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, for training, this is something that can be used to to learn something, to do something on the spot when you really need it. You don't have
Mm-hmm.
the knowledge, or you don't necessarily, or you have a limited basic skill, and you still want to prepare a specific dish. It can really help you achieve this. So those kind of technologies for me will be a huge step in the right direction. Now, the disadvantage is that in most cases you are there with your goggle. You're not communicating with other people. Maybe your trainer or other participants in the training
Mm-hmm.
can be found. You can be in a dojo, for example, and like the Matrix, and you can have different people there with a human trainer learning something in the VR. But in most cases, like online training today, it's more solo mode.
Yeah.
You're there with your videos and your quizzes. So I think that the difficulty will be to still keep the human contact. So
Mm-hmm.
remain hybrid, not go
Yeah.
purely digital, but have still human interactions physically.
Yeah. I think an interesting thing you could do there, to maintain that, if let's say we can go back to like the individual who's wanting to like practice their sales approach or something. They could put on the VR headset. Maybe they're talking to an NPC that maybe it's AI powered to the point where it can go back and forth, kind of like if you're like practice with like a chat GPT, for example, and you're talking back and forth with it, and you're like, okay, I've tried a couple different techniques, see what works, see what doesn't work, and you can do that whenever. That's something that if you're at home, you can practice it. You don't need somebody else there, and then from there you could take that. You're like, all right, I feel confident enough to then you have training, let's say at your facility with a couple other individuals, and now you're actually practicing it on a real person. Because then you can get those initial worries out of you that okay,
Mhm.
I'm saying this thing wrong, saying this thing wrong. You're testing it out on an NPC or an AI tool or an AI bot, for example, and from there you're taking those learnings and applying them into a real training scenario with another person. I think I could see that where there's kind of like that hybrid crossover where you're able to jump into the VR world or into a different world, practice it a little bit, get more confident, then be able to apply it.
Yeah, most existing VR trainings are focused on tasks.
Mm-hmm.
For example, things that are complicated. Imagine you're working in a power plant. You can't really start training within in the power plant and
Yeah.
shutting it down. So a VR goggle with a simulation will help you easily, and well, it's much cheaper. You have zero risk, and you learn
Mm-hmm.
the process. On the other hand, you don't have or very limited training about soft skills, for example, how to work
Oh
with
my, yeah.
others, what
Mm-hmm.
happens in a specific situation. And these are the kinds of trainings, for example, that's what we're doing with our 3D environments, focus on the interactions between people. And I think that this is also something that will come more and more with time. And there, for example, the AR might be more interesting than the VR.
Yeah.
And as you said, we will have more and more NPCs, well NPTs I would call them, non-playing trainers,
Mm-hmm.
that will have a huge amount of content, and that will be really able to coach you in your learning, in your evolution. I think that companies, companies want to provide you a path about you're working 5 years in a company or 10 years in a company. How do you evolve? What are the
Mm-hmm.
skills that you have? What are the skills that you're going to learn? And I think that in this part, the AI is very interesting. And one of the things I really want to introduce is, like in video games, you have those skills trees. I'm not the only
Mm-hmm.
one that thought about that, but in order to know how you advance, what are the skills that you've learned, having a skill tree that is also suggested by an AI. For example, you're a designer, or you are working in communication, or HR, whatever the field. We can assess with tests, for example, what are your skill sets right now? Where do you want to go? And based on that, the AI will be able to provide you a path with different trainings that are using the latest technologies, but training on site, training with coaches, etc., etc. And then when you succeed each time, you see how you evolve. And based on your decision, which training you're going to take, one rather than the other, the branching continues. A little bit like the game that we're trying to do.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. I don't know if you ever played like Skyrim back in the day, but I was always being
Of
able
course.
to build your skill tree, decide exactly what you're wanting to build in it. And I know we talked about this before, but it's gamifying life. And that for a lot of people, and especially for myself, when I gamify things, it feels almost feels like more natural to me. I'm like, all right, I've played a bunch of video games. I'm able to apply it to real life now, leveling myself up every single time. I'm learning this new skill. I've applied the knowledge. I'm more confident in the skill. Okay, I can check this off and say I'm confident in it. And maybe right there, that's where the AI steps in and makes sure, okay, has this person truly learned this? Maybe they test you in some way, then boom, you can go on to the next step.
Definitely. What I found, one skills tree that I found quite interesting also was Diablo 4,
Okay.
because you can change during the game. So for example, you train in a specific skill set,
Mm-hmm.
you play, and then you say, okay, I don't connect with it, I don't like it, or it's too weak or too powerful or whatever.
Yeah.
Then you just change, go back and try something else. And in the case of AI, for example, in automatization, you will be able to see how your employees learn something, how they connect with it. Did they like it? Did they evolve in it or not? Or they prefer taking another path? Instead of wasting time we tend to say that it's better to focus on your strengths rather than in trying to improve your weaknesses. But it's also important to focus on what you like doing, because when you
Mm-hmm.
like it, you're in the flow. When you're in the flow, you provide better work.
Yeah.
Your output is much better. You don't
Mm-hmm.
get bored. You don't get burned out. So the AI would be able to help you, because now you already have automatizations tools to, for
Mm-hmm.
example, to manage your schedule. The AI will help you reorganize your agenda in order to be more efficient. But at the same
Exactly.
time, it doesn't necessarily take into consideration what you like,
Mm-hmm.
what you want. It's not just
Yeah.
about automatization, it's also about who you are. And the combination of the two, who you are, how do you evolve, what do you do, the AI in that case would be able to help you
Yeah. I think that's
grow at least.
and that's a pretty interesting. I think that's a pretty interesting thing to say because I think that's just where we're at currently with AI. A lot of people are still like, okay, not sure what I can do here, not sure what I can do here. What is this even at the end of the day? What are we what is AI even doing for us? But being able to like when you put it into words like that, it's like, all right, it's gonna be automating this, and it's gonna decide, okay, you're gonna talk back and forth with it and say, these are the things I like. I want more time to be able to do these things. Especially, identifying, okay, where's your flow at? So for me, my flow, in terms of my business, my flow is creating content and talking to interesting people. That's what I love to do. So the other tasks, if I can automate them and get them out of the way or have it help me in some way, so it saves me time from having to do those tasks, be able to focus on these, it just makes my life so much easier. It makes me much happier. I'm in the flow state. I'm able to do the things I want to do, and I think that's where we are headed for a lot of different positions. They're just going to be able to focus on the things that they enjoy as part of their jobs.
Yeah, definitely. I think that right now we're in the phase where we're discovering AI. I
Yeah.
mean, AI exists for a while already, but I mean
Hmm.
the new Gen AI and automatization that are accessible for everyone, we're
Yeah.
discovering. The technology is evolving, and right now it's creating different niches. You have generative AI for video, for images, for animations, for sound,
Hmm.
etc., etc. Then you have the automatization. You have your agenda, the content creation, etc., etc. I think with time you will have a more holistic approach. More and more will merge, fuse, or provide different services that at the end will be tools that really help you.
Hmm.
Today, unlike most people think, I think that AI makes you waste a lot of time in a positive way because you create a lot. We create a lot.
Yeah.
AI creators really enjoy the time that they
Hmm.
spend on it, and for most of them, it's not their main job. I mean, it's
Yeah.
an extra. They try to create, to develop new skills and come up with something new. And actually, all these contents will be used by the developers to come with solutions that the non-AI users, will connect with, will appreciate you working with, and we say, hey, it's not AI taking over; it's actually me, outsourcing some in order to improve what I'm doing.
I think one of the things you said right there that really stood out to me, and it is true because especially at first, when you're looking to start like using AI, it can be just much more of a time waster. You're sitting there. Like at first when I was messing with Chat GPT for the longest time, something that I was trying to have it do for me was something I could have done in 5 minutes, but it took me an hour to get an actual good response, exactly what I wanted because it was at the point where I'm like, I want to make sure that I can do it. I want to get to the point where I know that I can get to do exactly what I want. And that's where I see a lot of the holdup can be. And like you said, if you have to or you have to pick the tasks, at least this is what I think. You have to pick the tasks that AI can help with that are like cumbersome in some ways. Like for example, when I'm trying to create content, I know I can create content and do it myself, but I also know that if I am able to prompt it in a way, and I've gotten this after months and months and months of trying, I've gotten at the point where now when I'm creating content, I can do a lot of the heavy lifting. Whereas when I first started, I was trying to have it create content for me, and it just wasn't that great. It wasn't that great. It would have been better for me to have done it myself. But now that I've put the time in, now I can see the fruits of my labor because it's one of those things where you get better over time. And there's a lot of
It,
things
it's
that, let's say you can continue.
it's an investment.
Yeah,
You invest your time. You have to see it as an investment.
and it's also in
I've
terms of choosing which tool, like what is like actually worth using AI for. Because a lot of people are like some people are like, okay, well, I think AI should be able to do a lot of my work for me. Should it really be doing that work for you? Is that task actually should be delegated to AI, or should it be AI maybe helps you a little bit on it, or maybe it's AI shouldn't be touching this assignment if it's got too much sensitive data, or if it's, for example, something that requires more of an emotional intelligence that AI doesn't have currently. I think there's that decision to be made, or like, is this tool or is this task worth using AI on?
you also have to see it as a skill in the sense
Hmm.
that more you use it, more you improve, the better you are, more you can do with that. On the other
Yeah.
hand, all the time that you spend using AI, it's time that you don't spend using other skills. Take, for example, languages. Okay, you study a language. I studied at university Japanese. You have to continue use it, otherwise you
Hmm.
just lose it. And
Yeah.
basically that's what happens. So imagine you take an artist who draws very well. I'm awful at that. So for me, AI is it's a blessing. But
Yeah.
someone an artist who draws very well, it's pointless for him or her to use AI to draw something instead of what they do. Okay. On the other hand, they can use the AI to improve it, alter it, change it, come with something new,
Yeah.
evolve in their art, but not replace their art by AI. And that is
Exactly.
why I think also that a lot of people mix. They're so afraid of losing their job to AI, but at the same time, we humans, people love to be, we're social, okay, and it's known that we buy from other people. I will have a very hard time buying something suggested by an AI. Actually, I've read something or I saw something about that, where you would have AI influencers that will test products and then tell you how good it is and try to sell it to you. Or you have more and more, you will have more and more AI in the help desk or cold calling you and things
Yeah.
like that,
Hmm.
which is kind of scary on that part. But I will have a very difficult time accepting an AI telling me if why a product is good or not good. I would much more prefer having another human being telling me, okay, this is good or not good for those reasons. Why? Because first of all, we're much more connected with humans than with AI, and
Hmm.
secondly, the AI itself is not necessarily using the tool or the
Yeah.
object or whatever.
And at the
It's a
end of the day,
human being
the
that will be
AI,
using it.
yeah, at the end of the day, the AI is just was told, or maybe it's looking at it from like an objective view, but it's going to be finding the positives, it's going to be finding all these things that, like you said, that the AI doesn't really know all that stuff. It needs
Yeah,
to see, you need to see somebody else using it or hear of somebody else using it, and that there's that human connection right there, you know.
exactly.
I
Eh,
like I'd be the same way if I was looking at a product and I seen a bunch of AI recommendations or AI reviews, I'd be like, I don't really care to see those. I want to see what other people have said about this.
Yeah. And coming then back to training or e-learning, it's the same thing. If an AI developed the whole training, I will be much less interested by it, even though it can be of perfect, amazing quality. But I would be much more open to have a training done by a person with AI rather than a training that is done purely by AI.
Yeah.
Even here in the game that we develop, we say it's 100% AI generated content, but it's not the game itself, it's not AI. I mean, it's people working on it. There is development behind it.
No, I think especially in terms of like the e-learning, for example, if I were to see a course that's completely generated by AI, it might be that it's perfect, but there's that credibility, and at least in my eyes, where I'm like, okay, I want to see the person that created this. I want to be able to maybe look into their story, look into what their, what how are they an expert in this topic that I'm trying to take a course on. Yes, I know AI can be an expert in about everything that you if you were to train it properly, but at the same time, it doesn't feel the same. It doesn't feel like I feels like it was something that was kind of given to me, and I'm like, okay, this is artificial. It doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel like somebody put real effort into this to make it for me to take the course. So there's that lack of effort, and especially the lack of creativity. Even though it could have been the most effort ever to get this thing up and running exactly how you wanted it. There, even if you like, I look at it as if you were to create an AI course like completely by AI, and then you just attach somebody's face to it, and then look credible enough, that to me would I would be like, okay, that's at least a little bit better, you know?
Well, if you take the latest avatars, especially now that you will have HeyGen that is coming with moving avatars when you
Hmm.
can that they will be
Yeah.
booking and things like that, it will be difficult to make the difference between the avatar and the real person that
Yeah.
was recorded. At the same time, what's interesting with AI training is that it can be customized to a specific needs. For
Hmm.
example, you respond to a survey about whatever leadership, let's take leadership training, and then the content that was developed will be customized to your own needs in the specific situation you are in. Imagine you are an employee and you've been promoted to being a team leader. You've never been in a position of leadership. So now you're missing some skills. So you have to get training. In the case of an AI training, which shouldn't be the only one, but an AI training can customize the content specifically to you. At the same time, I never really trusted online training for leadership. You need to experience it. So you need to be put in a situation where you have to take a leadership function. There, VR can become very interesting, for example.
But that application that you were talking about, where AI can identify, okay, this is where this person's either struggling or needs help in, and then can tailor that course content for that individual. And that's where I think that's where we're heading in e-learning. I think it's a possibility in the near future, not near future, near as in the next 10 to 15 years, where we're starting to see a lot more of that in schools. I think that could be something that, because a lot of like even in my own classroom, I grew up in a small town, small school. There was a lot of kids that just they didn't learn the traditional way, and we don't tailor to them for the most part. So that's why I see this as a possibility to have tailored, training for tailored learning programs for each individual that learns their way.
It's a double-edged sword. Actually, you see more and more, people working for the high-tech companies putting their kids in more traditional schools because they don't want to spend too much time in front of a screen. From one side, indeed, it's very interesting because you can develop in a specific way, more customized to who you are, especially if you have a specific needs. At the same time, and this is something that I found interesting about myself, I write a lot using computers, mobile phones, and less with a simple pen, which you don't see here, but doesn't matter. My writing skills, I mean, the visually at least, has become awful. I suddenly have the impression that I'm a doctor. They say doctors have an awful. So again, you use one skill rather than the other. And having I know about a school in Belgium where they decided to have the students spend a lot of time on screens. So they learn from a screen, then they have to respond to tests on the screens. And actually, a friend of mine had one of his kids there. He decided to take them away just because there's so much that you're not learning and then that you're lacking. A kid that doesn't learn how to write with a pen is losing a lot.
Yeah, and they're also losing a lot in terms of like the social aspects of things. If everyone's just in front of a screen, you're not getting that social aspect of working in groups with other people in person. So like you said, it is a double-edged sword. We're getting to the point where we can personalize learning a lot more. There's also that the opportunity to lose out on some of the soft skills and some of the other opportunities out there. Because growing up, yes, I was in front of screens a lot, but there was also so much of being outside, doing other things, doing more things right in front of me, not looking at a screen. I think, especially with kids nowadays, there's a lot of people that are in front of a screen 24/7.
Yeah.
It's kind of an interesting. We're gonna see what happens because it's scary in some ways. It's interesting in other ways because at the same time they're the next generation. They're gonna be powering, with like all these new technologies and things like that. But like it is scary. It is scary to think about.
It is especially addictive.
Yes, of course.
When I was younger, I loved video games. So okay, I had a social life, but at the same time, I played a lot of video games, and we actually organized a lot of, for example, Street Fighter contests. So we had friends coming home, and we played together. It wasn't just me in front of my computer. Today, you have the children, and I also have two kids. It's the same thing. You have children that want to start earlier and earlier, and with mobile phones or tablets. So it's only them with the screen. It's not sharing the experience with other people. And you put them in front of a screen half an hour, they ask for more and more and more and more. Actually, it is addictive. And actually, the use of AI is the same. I notice a lot of, most of AI tools use credits. That is one of my negative comments about Gen3 from Runway. It's very expensive because you have to use a lot of credits to create a video. But you start making a video, and then For me, the drugs in the addictive part in generative AI are the seeds. Because when you use a seed and you just change one number in the seed, it transform or a detail or completely the scene you're working on. But
Yeah.
then you're curious. You have a seed, you say, okay, that's good. What happens if I change this one? Ah, gives it. What happens if I change that one? And then you spend an hour, to find the perfect visual that you want. And in some cases, it can also be very expensive. So I think that this is something that has to be changed a bit, because they may need maybe to find another way of doing that. But AI, as people will get more and more, young people get more and more accustomed to work with digital tools, applications, etc. When they enter the AI world, they will probably spend even more time
Because
computers.
what it'll be is anything that they can imagine, they want to see, they can bring it to life, and that's the part where it ends up. It almost feels like we're going to be moving towards like a, like Ready Player One, that movie where basically everyone's always in VR kind of thing. It seems like we're starting to shift a little bit towards that without, with everyone's starting to get really into um just the digital world.
That's why we need balance.
Yeah, that balance is, it's so key. It's so key to get kids and get ourselves out and about into the real world instead of just in front of the screen at all time. Well, I
Yeah,
enjoyed this conversation. If you want, I mean, I love talking to you, dude. If you want to just jump into a call sometime next week again, if you want, just to have a
sure.
fun conversation, maybe we talk about just you showcase me some of your game, a little bit more of your
Yeah.
game, just because I think it's obviously it's really cool. So I'll stop
Okay,
the
with
recording
pleasure.
right